I have just made one of the most controversial tier lists I have ever seen, but I also believe every legend is there because they should be. A lot of people confuse pick rates with actual quality, so you might see some popular legends lower than you think they should be. People like myself have included ranked in ranking tier lists, but I won't be doing it this time as it is all about rating and you don't need a rat if you're a good enough player. So I will be actually basing it off of the legend quality rather than the meta. One thing I'll say before I start the tier list is that those people that say that it doesn't matter on the legend you play, it matters who you are and how good you are as a player, well, you might actually have a little bit of a case this season, as the meta is so even right now. It's probably the most even meta I've ever seen. But without further ado, let's get into the video. We're going to start in D tier, and it's only going to be Revenant here too, as he is by far the worst legend in this game. Never in Apex have I seen an ultimate as bad as this one, as it actually hurts the player by using it and everyone on the map knows your location. It has a pretty good tactical at least, so it's not all bad, but again the passive is lackluster in a lot of departments. I know this Rev Reborn thing is coming out, so hopefully we see him getting a buff / rework very soon. Starting off C tier is going to be Fuse. He only has one good ability, which is his tactical. Sending in a bunch of knuckle clusters is actually really hard to deal with as an opposing player. Sadly, the rest of his kit is actually incredibly lackluster. Storing extra grenades is insanely mid, and also his ultimate is so bad it hurts. The ultimate really doesn't capture anybody, as any legend with movement can get out, and also any surroundings in the flame can help you get out like rocks and boulders. Just above Fuse is Vantage. Now I know a few people do rate her a little bit higher, but for me her abilities just don't work as well as they did when she came out 3 seasons ago. Her ultimate is very overrated in my opinion. I think it's fair enough to be hit by it once, but if you get hit by it twice or more, then it is a skill issue. Her tactical is pretty good, it can definitely help, but other movement tacticals are just better. Her passive is not bad, I won't lie, it can definitely help with finding out information, but in reality you can just find out the information by just looking yourself. Caustic is someone who has been dropping ever since you've been able to destroy his traps, so that's why he's in C tier for me now. In a building, Caustic can be very good, but there's rarely ever a need to go inside of a building. Outside of enclosed areas, Caustic is not viable in the slightest. His ultimate is still good regardless of the situation, as it can make you win any even battle if the enemies are together. Still though, his traps are too easily destroyable and for me needs to be buffed. Near the top of C tier I have Ashe. She can be viable but ultimately is outmatched by other legends. Starting with the worst ability, the passive is pretty bad. Yes, you can see where fights have ended, but ultimately the closer fights you'd be able to hear anyway, and the further fights you couldn't push to make a difference. Her tactical has improved, but overall still lacks usability as it can be easily dodged. Best ability by far for her is her portal. Can definitely make a difference as you can gain angles very quickly on your opponents. Now for one of the hottest takes I'll have in this entire tier list is Octane at the top of C tier. I understand how fun he can be, but let's be real, he isn't good in comparison to other legends. His passive is handy, I'm not gonna lie, saves you needing to pop syringes. The tactical is a curse just as a blessing though. Taking away that much health going into fights is always going to lead to disaster. And yes, the stim can help you get away, but if you come across a better movement legend, you're toast. The jump pad is very mid, as legends like PATHFINDER, Horizon and Vantage have better movement abilities and they aren't even ultimates. Starting off B tier we have Rampart. Those of you that have seen my last tier list would know Rampart was down the bottom last season, but I have looked back and can admit I got it slightly wrong with her. However, she is still not a great legend. Her passive is still trash in my opinion, it's the worst in the game still as LMGs are useless. The ability that I got wrong was the tactical. Yes, you can easily destroy them, but if you distract the enemies from that, they'll have a harder time doing so later on. Sheila is still her best ability and can destroy enemies like door campers. Also with the introduction of evac towers, Sheila has no problem with getting rid of them. After Rampart, I've decided to put Lifeline in B tier 2. I think she has some viability, but still doesn't have the best revive in the game. In my opinion, Gibraltar, Newcastle and Mirage all have better revives as you have some cover whilst doing so, whereas Lifeline does not. Still though, it can be very helpful in a pinch. Her drone is really good after fights as it provides your full squad with instant healing whilst they shield swap and loot. The care package after its buff is actually decent. It's no LOBA black market or anything, but it's still very helpful. Mirage has been getting a lot of buffs, which is why he's now up to B tier for me. He has always been very low on everyone's tier list, but he can be viable nowadays. His best ability is that invisible revive though, because if you don't have LOS when they begin the action, you aren't going to find them without a bit of luck. Can be vital to win fights. His tactical is not that bad anymore as the enemies now get scanned when they shoot the decoys, which makes his ultimate a little bit better nowadays. Still though, the UI of the decoys are simple and predictable. In the middle of B tier I have the newest addition Ballistic. He is such a fun legend and a little viable too, but sadly that is not enough to be the best of the best. The passive is kinda mid. I know it goes well with the ultimate, but without the ultimate, it's just some standard stock weapon. His tactical can be good though. Firing at the right time can cause the enemy to fumble and lose the 1v1. And as we said before, the ultimate can help the passive as it turns the third weapon gold. Paired with the speed and reload boost, an open 3v3 is yours to lose when the ult is active. Now for the most controversial take here, I'm putting Wraith at B tier. She is so popular and I know someone's not going to be happy about this, but in my eyes, this is the truth. Her passive is non-existent, literally helps nothing besides knowing if somebody sees your rat spot. Her ultimate can be helpful, don't get me wrong, but seems to do the same job if not worse one than the other legends can do. I will say that her tactical can be amazing though. It can save your life moving between open spaces where other legends would get beamed. Sadly for Wraith mains however, one good ability does not make your legend great. The next two legends are very unlucky they aren't in A tier, first of which is Mad Maggie. She has some awesome abilities, but the passive only working on shotguns is what weighs her down. Shotguns are a poor man's wingman, so having to restrict yourself to a certain weapon type to gain an ability is not the way forward. The tactical and ultimate are amazing though. The drill can deliver massive bits of damage entering a fight, and the wrecking balls can disorientate the enemies so much they can't even see. Class abilities that are sadly weighed down by the passive. Now for another hot take, because we haven't had enough of those. Valk's a B tier legend now. I was Valk's biggest advocate, her abilities are all amazing. The problem now for her is evac towers. These towers are easier to use than her ultimate and are shorter by only a few meters. At least she still does have some good abilities. Her passive can be great in battles with multiple levels, breaking LOS. The missiles are probably the worst ability out the three, however still pack a punch. If it wasn't for evac towers, she would be at least higher A tier for me. Now we're done with the B tier legends, we can now move on to the A tier legends, and we'll start off with Wattson. Her ultimate carries her kit, but that doesn't mean she's a one-trick pony. The pylon is insane though, as it regens everyone's shield at a rapid pace and destroys any projectiles that comes its way. I wish it wouldn't destroy friendly stuff though. Her fences can be great for walling off enclosed areas, can be a little less useful outdoors but still provides some blockage. And her shield regen as a passive is honestly way too slow. But being able to stack 2 accelerants and for it to instantly charge her ultimate is a must have. Now for another hot take, I'm putting Crypto at A tier. He gets a lot of hate for being a bad legend, but it's because people think you have to sit idle in his drone. Used correctly by minimizing idle time, Crypto is a good legend. The EMP is his best ability too, as it destroys at least 70% of abilities, does 50 damage per player, and stuns everyone. Along with the scans the drone can give off, the risk-free banner grabs and instant respawns, he's an underdog. One thing that will always hurt him though is everything relying on his drone and it being easily destroyed. Sadly, Crypto will never be an S tier legend if this is the case in the future. Next is Newcastle, who is the reason why pick rates don't matter. Newcastle has been at the bottom of the pick rates for over a season now, but is very good inside Apex. His revive is so good it can be an insane clutch. Used when he has cover fire or enough time for your shield not to be melted will guarantee your teammate a second chance in the game. His tactical for me though is his best ability, as it's a Gibby dome on wheels. Poke in and out of this cover and you got yourself a reason not to lose any fight. I will say though his ult is a little stinky, can be good for blocking spaces and getting away, could use a bit more cover though. Right next to him is somebody extremely similar, it's Gibraltar. For me, Gibby edges Newcastle because of the ultimate and passive. The gun shield Gibby has is actual nuts, and you should not be losing many 1v1s if any as Gibraltar lost ADS, as you should have 50 extra health than your opponent regardless of the circumstances. His dome can be so good as well, especially to pull off a quick revive and to poke fight with one-shot weapons. The ultimate isn't the greatest abilities, I won't lie, but can still zone off enemies quite well. Horizon was S tier last season, but for me has dropped down to A tier now. She is an amazing legend and can be very fun to play. Sadly she received some little nerfs that have taken her down a touch. Her gravity lift is easily her best ability though, as it can serve as movement to get away or to an enemy and can even block doorways. Knowing more about movement, I can understand why Horizon's passive is so highly regarded. It can be great for that, plus getting the stuff quicker on the ground. And also her ultimate can serve as a good blockage of line of sight, but sadly the old ult and nade trick doesn't quite hit the same anymore. A resurgence happened when Pathfinder finally got his buffs, and now he's rightfully at the top of A tier. Finally he got a rework, which now makes his passive viable. It serves as a great way to get around the map, but also being limited to care packages does kind of defeat the purpose of a passive, I won't lie. His ultimate is so much better now you go longer and faster. You are much harder to hit rather than before where you're a sitting duck. And the best ability he has is the grapple. It's insane for getting away from trouble and also gaining angles on your opponents. One of the best in the game for sure. Now for the legend who has the best scan in the game and is very unlucky to miss out on S tier, Bloodhound. With a recent SEER nerf, he lost the #1 scan title and Houndy has taken it. His tactical can offer so much for the squad as it can show where the enemies are for a few seconds. Legal wall hacks are crazy. The ultimate does help a lot with finding enemies with the thermal scope, and the speed boost is very handy. I feel like there's better ults in the game though. Same goes with the passive, it's handy to know where nearby teams are, but really it's rather underwhelming as a whole. Now for the big hitters, the S tier legends. Let's kick it off with Catalyst, who has one of the most annoying kits in the entire game. The tactical is a big reason for that too, as you can place it on a doorway, do 15 damage a second to anyone in the spikes, and make it so they can't break it. It's crazy how that's allowed to perform like that. The massive black wall she activates is crazy for endgames. Put it down and you split off a section of the end circle all to yourself, making cover where you never had it before. The passive is one of the worst of the three, but for me, rebuilding broken doors is not a bad ability in the slightest. Now for one of my favourites in the game, Bangalore. She is crazy good on Apex, and can both be annoying and elite at the same time. The passive is one of the best in the game, as you get speed boost for enemies just firing a bullet near you. This allows for quick escapes and fast strays side to side. Her smoke is often an ability everyone gets wrong, as people smoke themselves, blinding them and their team. Also, if you're a controller, smoke disables aim assist, so never smoke yourself if you're a controller player. Her ult isn't the greatest, but like Gibby before, it's great for zoning off enemies. Combine the ult and your passive to make an escape nobody can chase. For me, the second best legend is someone who has just received a so-called nerf, it's SEER. I can honestly say this was definitely not a nerf, but more so a rework. Yeah, his scans did take a hit, but now his tactical locks abilities for 10 seconds and stuns them is huge still, and SEER is very good in Apex. He isn't OP like he was, but he is still an awesome legend to play. The heartbeat sensor feels like it never got touched, and still can sniff out any rats in the area too. Great for this season's ranked. And the ult did take a hit, I won't lie, but still offers so much intel for you and your team. Now for the best legends in Apex, and a lot of you will know who it is by now. I have opted for LOBA to be the top of the list as the best legend. It's mostly down to her ultimate really, it is really insane when you think about it. Every minute and a half you get infinite ammo and 2 items of your choice from the market. After around 3 markets, you don't need anything else anymore. Her bracelet is so good. It is predictable where you land, of course, but does it matter? No. Throw it correctly and you'll never need to worry. Her worst ability is her passive, but again, knowing if there's insane loot nearby is not a bad ability and will always help you. Well, that brings an end to the tier list, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to know what you guys agreed on, what you guys disagreed on. Let me know what your thoughts are on the video and the tier list. Also, if you do disagree with something, make sure to tell me in the comments below. What would you change? Where would you put each legend? Let me know. But yes, that is me done. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.